Welcome to the Elusive Truth with Rich and Larry. Well, today in Clown World, oh my, we're going to try to find the truth if we can. It's definitely elusive. So do you remember back a couple weeks ago, our biggest fear was something called the eclipse? Well, here we are, 2.5 weeks later, and Iran and Iraq, and what the heck is going on with these Palestinian protesters, and it's just nonstop. So we're going to start off with a gentleman that might have some truth behind what he says. His name is Mossab Youssef, and he's the son of the founder of Hamas. So he kind of knows a thing or two about what's going on over there. So let's just have a listen to what Mr. Youssef has to say. I think that you will find it very interesting.
Now we have the problem with the pro-Palestine who are actually giving Hamas cover. They are participants in the crime. In fact, since October 7, I personally don't differentiate between Hamas and what's so-called Palestinians. Because actually there is no Palestinians. There are tribes. There is the tribe of Hamas and there is the tribe of the Islamic Jihad. And each one has different interests and all of them are conflicted. If they did not have Israel as the common enemy, they would kill each other. This is the reality of what's so-called Palestine. Rhetoric? You don't know what Palestine is. Actually, in fact, the keffiyeh that you are wearing, this is just a statement to show that you really lack the authenticity to represent the case. And what's so-called the cause, this is a human problem.
So you just...
The cause must die. I think enough is enough.
I was blown away when I heard that. I am sure they're not teaching that up in the colleges. And these people have no clue what they're protesting for or with or against. They have no clue. So now that we have a better understanding of what Hamas is, did you see the report yesterday where several students were arrested at Columbia University in New York City? Palestinian protests, and my goodness, these guys are out of control. Have a listen. This is from Fox Business. Former FBI agent on protesters chanting, "We are all Hamas," sends chills up my spine. This is getting nuts, people. What are these kids doing? They have no clue. Have a listen.
Welcome back. Police officers arresting more than 100 anti-Israel protesters at Columbia University yesterday, just one day after the school's president testified before Congress about anti-Semitism on campus. Columbia's president sending a letter to the New York City Police Department asking that they remove students who were camped out in the middle of campus. She writes this: all university students participating in the encampment have been informed that they are suspended, saying that participants in the encampment were trespassing. Here's some of those campus protests this week. Watch.
We are Hamas!
You're Hamas, wow. That's a good one. You're what? You're Hamas?
Yes, we're all Hamas! Get the out of our face! No! Get the out of here!
Absolutely stunning. Lawless America. Joining me right now is Fox News contributor and former FBI special agent Nicole Parker. Nicole, great to see you. Thank you for being here. Your reaction?
Maria, it sends chills up my spine to listen to university students in the United States of America saying, "We are all Hamas." Hamas is a designated foreign terrorist organization. How did we get to this point in our nation, Maria? I was a witness to the 9/11 terrorist attacks in New York City. This never would have been spoken back around 2001. Absolutely not. And we are at this point in our nation where it is encouraged, it is celebrated. As I watch those protests, there is a very clear distinction between your First Amendment rights to protest. That's your American right. But you know what? You do not have a right for hate speech, violence, hatred. And these Jewish students at Columbia are now living in fear. You know, I watched some of these individuals speak up. One girl doesn't even want to attend her own graduation from Columbia University. This has been going on for far too long. Yeah. And again, let's remember, this is Columbia where they, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We need to love each other and embrace each other and our differences. Where is that now? Isn't that interesting? That's nowhere to be found. I can tell you right now that those students that are in fear for their lives do not feel included, and they do not feel safe. And this is reprehensible. And good for New York Police Department for stepping in. Those individuals deserve to be arrested. You are breaking the law, and it will not be tolerated.
I mean, do they not understand what Hamas has done here? That video of October 7th, the way they were taking girls, taking everybody, putting them on their bikes and running away. We've got hostages still in captivity. And we're not talking about the fact that Hamas has yet to say whether or not they're going to release any hostages.
Maria, I hate to tell you this. I think it's all common sense at this point. We've seen the open border. We've seen the threats facing our nation. Director Wray of the FBI has said that, the national security threats and alarms are going off. It is at an all-time high. And you know what? These people actually sympathize with these terrorist organizations. We should not be shocked. We have allowed these individuals into our country. Our academic institutions, there are professors at Columbia that are praising terrorist organization groups. Is anybody shocked by this? And the nation has reached a tipping point. And you know what? It is time for Americans to stand up. For those that say hate to America, you know what? You don't need to be here. You can leave. You don't need to be here. If you hate this country so much, you can leave. But my fear is that there are individuals that hate America so much, and they are living comfortably within the borders of our country. And they are planning things that could desperately harm us. And that is absolutely terrifying.
Well, what can the FBI do at this point? I mean, you left the FBI because you had a bad taste in your mouth in terms of politics taking over the agency. Where is the FBI in the middle of all of this?
Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, bad taste in my mouth would be an understatement, Maria. It was completely out of control. I saw what they were doing at the FBI and how they got involved in politics and the political persecution of those that stood on one side of the political spectrum, yet they turned a blind eye to the other. Where are they now? Christopher Wray, I appreciate that you're acknowledging that terrorist threats are at an all-time high, but what are you doing? What is your organization doing? Because right now, Americans do not feel safe. If you... The individuals on that campus, they do not feel safe. They better be treating this with the same amount of vigor as they did the January 6th.
Yeah.
We have come a long way from protesting to we are Hamas. What a crazy, crazy, crazy time we live in. Clown world. And to kind of go with that, we have some members of our government. They like this. The next piece is from Fox News. Squad members leap to defend Ilhan Omar's daughter after her arrest. Apparently, Ilhan Omar's daughter was at Columbia, and she was one of them arrested. And here, listen to this piece.
New York Police Department headquarters getting a taste of some angry protesters when a large crowd showed up at NYPD to protest the police for arresting 108 people who were taking over Columbia University. The university called in for help to disband a massive anti-Israel protest just a day after the school's president testified on the Hill about anti-Semitism. Watch.
I'm just standing here. Why are you doing this to me? Stop. You stop!
Oh, my gosh. Police charged the students with trespassing and two of them with obstructing law enforcement. The mayor and the NYPD commissioner describe a very chaotic scene.
What occurred was about 500 students left their classrooms, surrounded the quad, and were telling us we're the KKK. We should go kill ourselves. We're baby killers. And everything else you can imagine. It was sad. It was very sad to see.
You should not be using inflammatory comments like we saw. It was very vile, some of the comments that were made. And our institutions, I believe, should use this moment as a teaching moment.
They came out of the classrooms to do that. Mayor, with all due respect, I don't think they're interested in a teaching lesson. Among those arrested, the daughter of Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar was seen right on that Columbia campus. Now, that's not her school. Here she is after she was released, smiling and hugging her friend. She does not go to Columbia, as I mentioned. She was suspended, actually, from her own school, Barnard College. Omar's fellow squad members, far left, were very angry. Jamal Bowman said suspending Omar's daughter was a political reprisal. Rashida Tlaib called the arrest appalling. In focus now, Jason Rantz, Seattle radio host. Now, I have to imagine, because I know your show, I've done it myself as a guest, I've been on, you got a lot of response. I'm first curious to know, what are people saying that you've been talking with?
The folks I talk with are noting, number one, these are professional social justice martyrs. They like to be victimized. And so they show up and they go over the top with the expectation that they're going to get arrested, pretend that that wasn't the expectation, and then use this as a moment to radicalize other younger people, usually disillusioned youth who are upset about their job prospects right out of college, to join this movement. I mean, at the end of the day, when you start paying attention to some of the language, it's not just merely anti-Israel. These are anti-capitalists who are taking advantage. And what we're seeing here, and I think it's so interesting, it is parallel to what we saw with the BLM and Antifa movement. You've got the entitled kids mixed with the disillusioned ones. You've got the ones that escalate the violence. They get what they portray to be an overreaction from police. And then the next day and the next day and the next day, they start to see what they can do. They start to test it out. And if the NYPD in this case, or police departments anywhere else, if they don't push back immediately for the law breaking, what's going to end up happening is they're going to have momentum on their side, on the activist side, and it's going to start to spiral until we get to another summer of love. We saw this unravel already, and it's following the same script.
What do you mean summer of love? You mean you can, in your mind's eye, see somebody like a Lori Lightfoot, former mayor of Chicago, who was around at the time. You can see leadership on the far left saying, just work it out, and not arresting these people? That cannot be in our future, Jason.
I certainly hope it's not, but let's be clear, it was in our past, right? I mean, that's precisely what it is we saw the last time there was, yes, a large, massive movement with a demographic that Democrats need to hang on to if they want to win this next presidential election. And so you've got the politics bumping up against the public safety issues. And I do think that enough of these lawmakers who are Democrats, I don't think Democrats do not like Jews. I don't think that they're anti-Semitic. I think the progressive movement is. But when you've got to basically rely on that progressive movement to stay in power, you're going to have to make some tough choices. And I only hope that, unlike what they did during BLM, they make the smart political choices and the smart public safety choices.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said. It's the progressive left that are really trafficking in anti-Semitism. I'm putting that word in your mouth, but they are. They're utilizing it to get what they want, and right now they want to push on those moderates in their Democratic Party to bend their way. Ilhan Omar's daughter, just your quick thought about that. I mean, it's like a legacy of hate against Jews at this point. I mean, you've got her mom and the comments that she's made that are anti-Semitic, and then you have her daughter in a crowd that's yelling for Hamas. I mean, turn up the volume on some of that stuff. It's in English.
I'm assuming she's very proud of her daughter right now. This is precisely the kind of kid that she raised, the kind of kid who fights for Hamas, pretends that Israelis
or at least is in
are
a crowd
the aggressors.
Who is.
Well, she's clearly on this side. I mean, look, if you were someone who wanted to take a nuanced position on this and wanted to have a conversation about Israel's response, and you could have disagreements in policy, fine. But when you're showing up to crowds that are screaming about an intifada, screaming that they side with Hamas, the crowd that's saying Iran was right to strike over the last weekend, I think that says more about the individual than it does about this entire movement that they might want to say that they're a part of. These are people who are radical. End of story. It doesn't seem that difficult to understand because the people who are the nuance, they're not showing up to these rallies.
Yeah, it's like I used to say, Dr. King didn't march at 3 a.m. It was at 3 p.m. or earlier, and he prayed during the thing. So when all that was going on post-George Floyd, we knew so much of it had nothing to do with equality, George Floyd, or any of the rest. And none of this is feeding the Palestinian people. All right, I want to get this in because we had Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin talking about this on the program yesterday. Let's watch.
What troubles me is just the double standard. You know, we have at least a dual system of justice. In this case, you know, this free speech is completely allowed. I mean, can you imagine if these were people with the red MAGA hats on, blocking highways? The left-wing protesters, the pro-Hamas group, we have left-wing groups bailing them out if there is any kind of arrest.
Jason, your last thoughts.
Yeah, he's 100% correct. And what's really important for folks to pay attention to is not necessarily the arrests, but whether or not they get charged. And then when they get charged, go forward a few weeks. Are there plea deals? Do they end up getting pled down to some misdemeanor that doesn't actually matter? These people are not going to spend any time in jail, But will they get hit with a severe enough penalty where it actually matters and serves as a disincentive for other people in the group? And so, since I doubt that's really going to happen, what I'm all about is naming and shaming. The people who end up getting arrested for this kind of stuff, the ones who are saying the most vicious comments, let's name them. Let's tell the world who they are. And they can either stand with their anti-Semitism or go down with the ship.
Well, and good luck finding jobs in the future because it's all on video.
Yep.
Jason Rantz, thank you.
I don't know what to say. Watching the images of these kids just screaming about Hamas and being part of them, it's just the way things are. And just like 4 years ago, when we had the summer of love, like they talked about, they let all this happen and they didn't stop anything. They got to do something. It's going to get way worse. So for the next piece, this is from Mayor Tusi TV. Attack at the Iranian embassy in Paris. Very suspicious. More of the craziness going to come out of this conflict. Have a listen.
Well, hello everybody, welcome to 2C TV and the first live update of the day. I'm Maya 2C and we're going to bring you guys some, semi-breaking news. Been going on for the past few hours and it's actually been contained by the police. Some situation in Paris, the capital of France. The Iranian embassy experienced some chaotic scenes. It's not the first time an Iranian embassy abroad has been targeted. Of course, a few decades ago, we had the same situation in London following the Islamic occupiers taking control of Iran with a paramilitary coup of 1979. We also, of course, had a couple of weeks back the IRGC headquarters building, which is located next door to the Iranian consulate in Damascus in Syria, was also targeted. But this is a completely mental and insane story that we're dealing with that happened this morning, late morning, in Paris. This is about, of course, a lot of threats that are going around. I mean, the Iranian regime themselves have a lot of enemies. They have the actual people, Iranians, doing the uprising. They also have the Sunni militants, their opponents, I guess. They got the likes of ISIL and all the others. And of course, they got the Israelis as their enemy. They got all the Westerners. But this attempt, let's just say, of a suicide bombing, which massively failed, by the way. I want to get your perspective in case, obviously, whether you've heard the story already or not. We're going to analyze the whole thing here, but I need your opinion. Let's do a conspiracy theory question. Do you think this was a false flag by the Iranian regime, or do you think this was a Sunni militants? Because it was definitely an Iranian guy. It was an Islamic guy, basically. Let's just say. We'll find out exactly in terms of the background, but. Let's go to some of the videos that we have from earlier on in Paris. When the whole thing kicked off, some guy went into the embassy, was threatening to do suicide bombing, and took the ambassador as a hostage into one of the rooms until the police in Paris came and rescued the people.
d'Iran, rue Fresnel à Paris. Il serait porteur d'une grenade ou d'un gilet explosif. Évidemment, vous en doutez, il y a une demande d'intervention qui a été faite. Il y a un périmètre de sécurité qui a été mis en place. Vous le voyez sur les images. Le préfet de police qui a tout de suite dépêché la BRI, la brigade de recherche et d'intervention, brigade de recherche et d'intervention, qui est un groupe d'intervention spécialiste de ce genre de cas, comme peuvent être cette attaque, possible attaque. Encore une fois, il faut confirmer que cet homme existe et qu'il permet au consulat d'Iran dans le 16e arrondissement.
Okay, so these were the initial scenes that we had when the police had to basically shut down the whole area. And it was not near the Eiffel Tower, by the way, the embassy. But it got worse because this was a moment, and that's why I can see in the live chat already, a lot of people agree with me that it's probably false flag for various reasons. I know this is just speculation until we find out exactly what happened. But it gets crazy. The whole story gets crazy until we find out more information. Let's quickly go to the next video. This was when the police decided to basically take it more seriously, like the SAS in London with the Iranian embassy. Let's go. So yeah, they did this. They went into the building, rescued everyone, including the ambassador who was being held as a hostage. Then we started hearing more information. So firstly, the man was born in Iran, apparently, right? And then they changed the story. So reports came earlier that the attacker was potentially basically holding up the one of the rooms and the ambassador Mohammed Amin Nejad, and then this is where it gets crazy. They obviously the police arrested the man, and we're like, okay, we're gonna find out who this person is. They were like, well, we're not gonna give you the identity yet. It's the same problem that we had a few days ago, a couple of weeks back, a week ago, whenever it was, in Sydney, when they're like, okay, well, we know the attacker. He was on the watch list, right? He was a disturbed man. They knew the age, 40, but they're like, well, we don't know anything else. That makes no sense. They clearly did know. And then eventually they released the information. This is why, initially we heard why he failed. Al Jazeera said this, the French media said, the man who was threatening to basically destroy the whole embassy, the consulate in Paris, forgot his bomb. That was the initial reaction. The media started saying, oh, we are hearing that he actually forgot to bring his bomb. They made me think, obviously, this is clearly one of the most incompetent attackers, but also goes back to my theory that it's most likely as a false flag. The Iranian regime, it's in their interest for the people in the world to think that the Iranians or Iran is currently the victim in all this, and they're being threatened and attacked by the Jews, by the Christians, and all the people, right? So as a scenario, it would make sense that this would be a false flag. I'm not saying this is 100% a false flag, but it would make sense. If I was in charge of the Iranian regime, I would do it. Because I would say, well, last night, Israelis attacked us, even though they downplayed it. We're going to talk about that later as well. What happened last night in Iran, the attack. And then they could also do this, saying, oh, look, our embassy is under attack, but nothing actually happened. The attacker forgot his bomb. And then they came and corrected it. The French prosecutors have reported that the individual who stormed into the Iranian consulate in Paris, acted alone, was born in Iran, was carrying fake bombs. So first they said he forgot it. He left it on the train or at home maybe. Always double check when you leave your home to make sure you have all the equipment on you. And then they said, oh, it was fake. Why? What was the point of this? Clearly you're going to get caught. If, it's either a false flag or the person who did it was insane because it makes no sense. You're going to get caught anyway. And especially if you have nothing on you, nothing real, then you're going to get caught and the whole thing failed. What are you going to be doing? Why are you there? What was the aim? Now, they've always, as I say, the Iranian regime have a lot of enemies. We've got the separatists, we've got the Sunnis, we've got the Israelis, we've got the Americans. Everybody hate them, right? But they are trying to be more like a victim now. Oh, look at us. Everybody's attacking us. All the bad people in the world are attacking us. And we are just the innocent Iranian regime. Yeah, right. I believe that. Just a quick note, by the way, because we've taken a while. It's now 6 p.m. in the UK. First live stream. Sorry for the delay because we've been busy filming.
They do certainly give the news much differently over there in the UK than they do here in the United States. I mean, that guy took forever to let us know the guy forgot his bomb. This just proves it's clown world all over the world. Moving forward, we're going to try to find some truth about what's going on with Iran and Israel. Here from Frontline Reports, unbelievable. Israeli air forces hit Isfahan air base deep in Iran. Tehran is in big trouble.
Welcome to the Frontline Reports YouTube channel. After the Iranian attack on Israel last Saturday night, the Israeli retaliation messages came true at dawn today. Israel launched simultaneous airstrikes on at least 7 Iranian cities, Iraq and Syria at dawn. The attack was first announced by a senior U.S. official. The U.S. official said Israel attacked Iran in a move that threatens to trigger more deadly conflicts in the Middle East. Israel fired retaliatory missiles at Iran early Friday morning local time, a senior U.S. official said. According to initial reports from the region, explosions were reported in the Iranian cities of Tehran, Fordo, Arak, Natanz, Karg Island, Bushehr, Bandar Abbas, and Isfahan. Iran's state-run Fars news agency reported that an explosion was heard at an airport in the Iranian city of Isfahan, but the cause was not yet known. There are several Iranian nuclear facilities in Isfahan province, including Natanz, which is the centerpiece of Iran's uranium enrichment program. To Tehran, Isfahan, and Shiraz were suspended after reports of an explosion in the city of Kajavaristan. Iranian state media is reporting that tonight's Israeli Air Force airstrike may have targeted the Iranian Air Force's 8th Tactical Air Base inside Isfahan International Airport, which contains multiple squadrons of F-14 Tomcat fighter jets. Isfahan was one of several launch sites used in the attack. Footage shared on social media shows anti-aircraft fire hitting the central Iranian city of Isfahan, home to one of Iran's nuclear facilities.
You can definitely tell that's definitely not American newscasters. So much information. And it goes on for another 12 minutes listing all the damages with the cities. So go check that out, Frontline News. So they're saying something did happen. And now we're going to go to Channel 4 News. Channel 4 News is a British public broadcast service. The story is why Israel's attack on Iran is being played down by both sides, which is interesting because I'm getting different reports that Israel only sent 5 drones over and then Iran shot 3 down, and that was the extent of this retaliation. Then the report we just heard, obviously there was several cities, 6 I believe, that were involved in this, and other countries as well. It's getting crazy. The news, it's becoming a precious commodity, at least for the truth. Channel 4 News, have a listen.
After days of tension and calls for calm, Israel's response to Iran's unprecedented drone and missile strike appeared carefully calibrated to avert a wider war. Iran activated air defense batteries in several provinces early this morning. There were reports of explosions near an airbase in the city of Isfahan, where Iranian state TV said 3 drones were shot down. The city is close to several important military sites, including the Natanz nuclear enrichment facility, which the International Atomic Energy Agency says was not damaged. And the reaction from Tehran was very muted, as our foreign affairs correspondent Secunda Kamani reports.
Flashes in the sky above Isfahan as Israel launched its much-anticipated response to Iran's missile barrage last weekend. Everything is fine, was the message across Iranian state media. Isfahan is in complete peace, this reporter said this morning. Officials talked of several small drones being intercepted close to an airbase after being launched from inside Iran. Iran had threatened to retaliate to any Israeli attack. Instead, the regime has been downplaying it. At a state-backed protest, the message was clear. Iran has come out on top. No further action required.
Last night you witnessed that if suspicious flying objects appear in the country's sky, they will not be spared from being the target of our power's defense. Thank God there were no major issues.
An Iran-linked media outlet released these images of what it said was wreckage of Israeli missiles found in neighbouring Iraq. Israeli officials haven't commented at all. The strike shows they are willing to hit Iran directly, but it's clear this wasn't the major escalation many had feared. At the G7 in Capri, there was no doubt cautious relief. International leaders had been pressing Israel to act with restraint, fearful of a regional war breaking out.
You saw Israel on the receiving end of an unprecedented attack, but our focus has been on, of course, making sure that Israel can effectively defend itself, but also de-escalating tensions, avoiding conflict, and that remains our focus.
This cycle of reciprocal strikes began with Israel killing several senior Iranian commanders in a consular building in Damascus. Then on Saturday, Iran launched 300 missiles and drones at Israel. The attack was unprecedented, but also carefully choreographed. Warned ahead of time, Israel and its allies were able to shoot down nearly all of them. Concern switched to how Israel would react. The two countries have long engaged in a murky, at times secretive battle, often fought out by Iranian proxies like Hezbollah, and unclaimed Israeli strikes on sites in Syria, or even assassinations inside Iran. Seema Shine is a former senior Mossad officer specializing in Iran.
Fair to say that this episode is now done and dusted?
I hope so. I think Israel has done something that was, how should I put it? It was elegant, but still very military forcefully.
Have the rules of this shadow conflict that's been playing out between Israel and Iran for many years now changed?
There is a potential that they've changed. We don't know yet. I think this was the reason for Iran to attack Israel. They wanted to put a red line and to say no more after a long time that they didn't do it. The question will be put on Israel's side when we will have to decide whether we attack as we did in the past. Each time Israel will decide to do something, it will have to think twice.
Iran might tout this clash as a success, but it's underlined just how weak it is militarily compared to Israel. The embattled regime may well conclude its best defense lies in developing nuclear weapons, a move Israel will be determined to prevent. Well, here in Tel Aviv tonight, the atmosphere seems very relaxed. No real concern amongst ordinary people about the possibility of Iranian retaliation. Of course, just around an hour's drive south, the situation couldn't be more different in Gaza. More than 34,000 Palestinians now said to have been killed in Israel's assault, according to local officials there, the vast majority of them women and children. The intensity of Israel's bombardment has somewhat decreased compared to earlier stages of the war, but we're still talking about dozens of people being killed every day. And the threat of an Israeli invasion of Rafah is still very much there, despite international criticism, including at the G7 today. The US Secretary of State Antony Blinken saying the Biden administration continues to oppose Israeli plans for a major military operation in the southernmost city where more than 1 million Palestinians had fled seeking safety.
Sikander Kamani in Tel Aviv. Well, Benjamin Netanyahu's ban on Israeli government interviews this week is still in force today. Joining me from Tehran is Professor Mohammad Marandi, who was previously an advisor to Iran's nuclear negotiations team. Thanks for joining us. Can you explain Tehran's reaction? There has been an attack by Israel, and previously the official line had been the tiniest attack would elicit the maximum response.
Well, there was no attack. There were just 3 drones that didn't come from abroad, and they were struck in the sky. They probably were from somewhere inside Iran. Iran is a huge country. It's the size of Germany, the UK, and France combined. So nothing came in from Israel. And I think that is, to a large extent, contrary to what your colleague said, because of Iran's power. The Iranian strike on Israel...
But it was clearly an Iranian attack. I mean, even if it came from inside Iranian territory, it was an Israeli attack, and that's been confirmed by the Italian foreign minister at the G7 summit.
Well, I think it shows the utter weakness of the Israeli regime when they won't even take responsibility and they won't fire missiles into the country after making such big claims. The fact is that after the Israelis hit the Iranians hit them hard. I know that you said that the Iranian attack was not a success, but it was actually the exact opposite. Iran sent 200 drones, roughly. The numbers are not exact. Very old drones. None of them had any of the new technology that Iran has. And then when after 3-4 hours, when they reached Israel, they sent a series of missiles, some older and some were newer. And all of these drones and older missiles were cheap, dirt cheap, and they were decoys used to gather intelligence and to force the Israelis and the Americans to use up all their surface-to-air missiles, and they succeeded. The Israelis alone spent $1.35 billion on their missiles, and I think the Iranian attack probably costed $15 million. And then the key missiles that the Iranians sent, about 10 to 20, hit the 2 targets, the air base in the south and the intelligence gathering center in the Golan Heights. And
let me just come in here for a second, just because obviously, the precise success or otherwise of both attacks is disputed by both sides. In fact, there's a report out of America tonight that there may also have been an Israeli missile strike on an Iranian target, and I'm sure that will be disputed and argued over as well. But the bigger point is that both sides are playing this down. And isn't the truth that both sides do not want to escalate right now? Would you say that an overt, open war has for now been averted?
Well, first of all, if the Americans say a missile was fired, they have to tell us where it was fired. That landed somewhere. And Iran did not play it down. They have been ridiculing the Israeli attack all day. They've been saying it's pathetic. And but the Iranians never wanted an escalation. It was the Israelis, as you rightly pointed out earlier on, that initiated the attack. They attacked the embassy, and when the UK, the US, and France and the UN Security Council effectively support the Israelis and prevent them from being condemned, let alone punished, for killing people in an embassy in Syria. They violated Syrian airspace. They bombed an embassy and killed people, including locals. And the US, the UK, they supported Israel. And then when Iran retaliated, they imposed sanctions on Iran. That's the upside down world that the collective Western elites have created for us.
Professor Morandi, thank you for joining us.
There you have it. What's really going on? No one knows. Well, just like with the Ukraine. Apparently, they've been holding off mighty Russia this whole time, and yet more money is needed for the cause. The Biden administration wants to send more money to the Ukraine. Of course, now to Israel and every other place that they get 10%, of course. Crazy. You have to look at multiple sources of information just to try to grasp what's really going on out there. The times we live in, folks. The times we live in. We're going to go for more circus acts. This is called Liberal Hive Mind. Did you guys see this? Absolutely mind-boggling, the stuff that comes out of Biden's mouth and all these other crazy politicians. So have a listen, change your pace a little bit. This is why we're constantly bombarded with crazy stuff, just to get us all mixed up. Have a listen.
Let me tell you, does this seem like an enthusiastic Joe Biden endorsement? I mean, Joe Biden seems to think so. And when I say Joe Biden, I mean his handlers who run his Twitter account, probably very low-paid staffers. I'm proud to have your support, Bernie Sanders. Bernie's right. From workers' rights to women's rights, it's all on the line in November. We must defeat Donald Trump. Take a look at this clip.
You may have disagreements with President Biden. I certainly do. But if you believe in democracy, if you believe in justice, if you believe in workers' rights and women's rights, Donald Trump must be defeated and President Biden reelected in November.
Yeah, I don't think that's the W that they think it is. I'm sure Joe Biden thinks it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, since, Joe Biden thinks that he's leading in most of the polls.
My poll numbers, the last 5 polls you guys don't report, I'm winning 5 in a row. You guys only look at the New York Times. They're a great paper.
Biden's staffers tell him, look, Joe, you're leading in all the polls. It's just fantastic, even though this is the reality. And pretty much every prediction has Donald Trump winning in every battleground state. So Joe probably saw the video. Joe was probably presented the video as if it's a super enthusiastic endorsement, but it was anything but. He literally opens up with saying, Joe Biden kind of sucks, and I certainly don't agree with him, but Donald Trump, oh, evil orange man, oh, evil orange man. That's not an endorsement. That's the opposite of a direct endorsement. That's we have to elect this guy even though he kind of sucks because the other guy is the gravest threat to our democracies. How absolutely pathetic, honestly, pathetic on both sides. Bernie Sanders continues to be a pathetic, capitulating shill, and just the lack of enthusiasm for Joe Biden, well, it continues. There's nothing there, there's no argument as to why you should vote for Joe Biden. It's just an argument as to why you shouldn't vote for Donald Trump. Democrats continue to be stuck in that position. Elect us because we're not the other guy. That's not an inspiring message, which is probably why Democrats are so focused on artificially orchestrating voter turnout rather than actually promoting a message that's inspiring and hopeful for people to come out and vote, and of course young people to show up and vote for their futures. We are seeing continued proof that Joe Biden has no message. Stephen A. Smith and what he said the other day was correct, and he actually reiterated it this morning on Fox News.
When I think about Donald Trump, I think about this case in New York. I mean, I'm looking at the Democrats right now, and again, primarily I have voted Democrat throughout my life, but I'm utterly disgusted with what I'm seeing because it seems to me that they're trying to use the law and the courts. They've clearly politicized this thing with Donald Trump because they can't come up with a strategy to offset the momentum he's clearly gained.
They have nothing. They have nothing to run on. What is Joe Biden going to run on for the next generation? You know, this might as well be his major campaign slogan. America, take 50% off your entire net worth in Joe Biden's Banana Republic. Is that an inspiring message for the youth? Obviously, it isn't. And obviously, they're not happy about foreign policy. They're not happy about what he's doing in terms of student loan relief, which he obviously should have never promised because he never had the authority to do so. The executive of the United States does not have the authority to just slash debts. And so what are they running on? They're running on evil orange man. Evil orange man is coming after Social Security. I mean, frickin' really? How many times has Donald Trump been clear on the record?
Under no circumstances should Republicans vote to cut a single penny from Medicare or Social Security.
Not one penny. But of course, that doesn't matter to these lying Democrats, because if Donald Trump says something, what he really means is the opposite. Right, Nancy?
I think Donald Trump is going to, if he were to be president, God forbid that should happen to our country, but if he were, he'd be for a national abortion ban. Make no mistake, I don't care what he says, but that's what he's about.
Donald Trump has made his stance clear on a federal ban on abortion. He's not for it. But Nancy Pelosi, oh, she knows him well. She knows Donald Trump better than anyone else. He actually is for a national ban. Give me a frickin' break. These people are all fakes. They're all scoundrels. Bernie Sanders included, even though he pretends to be, this unquestionable, this unimpeachable politician of great moral character and authenticity. He's anything but. He pretends that Donald Trump is an existential threat to workers' rights and women's rights and the social welfare net. But here's a debate highlight released by the Bernie Sanders team themselves back during the Democrat nomination process, where Bernie Sanders hits Joe Biden as being a threat to the social safety net.
Let me ask you a question, Joe.
Yeah.
You're right here with me.
Yeah.
Have you been on the floor of the Senate? You were in the Senate for a few years.
Yeah.
Time and time again, talking about the necessity, with pride, about cutting Social Security, cutting Medicare, cutting veterans programs.
No.
You never said that.
No. When I argued that we should freeze federal spending, I meant Social Security as well. I meant Medicare and Medicaid. I meant veterans benefits. I meant every single solitary thing in the government. Look, here's the deal.
You're an honest guy. Why don't you just tell the truth here? We all make mistakes.
I am telling the truth. And I not only tried it once, I tried it twice, I tried it a third time, and I tried it a fourth time.
Such incredible hypocrites. There seems to be not one authentic character on the left-wing side. Bernie Sanders, the billionaires, the billionaires, the billionaires, oh, the billionaires. That's all he ever freaking says. Yet here he is, publicly endorsing the candidate that has been better for the billionaire class than anybody else in modern American history. The billionaires have basically doubled their net worths. The billionaires, the 1%, have gotten richer under Joe Biden. Meanwhile, during the 4 years of Donald Trump's presidency, it was the lower and middle class that was moving upwards. Upward mobility was actually a thing we were talking about. Now all we talk about is all these incredible jobs reports, people working 2 jobs to survive, and the expansion of government, in other words, more government jobs, as we've covered, and of course the billionaires getting richer and richer and richer. And that's the guy that Bernie Sanders is endorsing. Kind of. What an absolute farce. This isn't the big endorsement win that they think it is, not to mention, Bernie Sanders doesn't have the woke foreign policy stance that I think a lot of the young socialists are looking for. And of course, Bernie Sanders is a self-identified socialist, not exactly a winning endorsement strategy for independent voters who don't want communism. Another massive, epic fail. These people are so incredibly fake. But that's what I got for you guys on this one. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
Liberal hive mind. Go check them out. Speaking the truth, telling you. Go look it up. So you have to keep looking for that elusive truth. You have to band together with your neighbors, your friends, your loved ones. Higher vibrations. This is how we're going to defeat the madness. With that, much love. Love from God to each other. We got to work on communication. Something. Clown world's getting worse, folks. Hey, if you want to hear any good new country music that just came out, Adam Calhoun featuring Byron Martin, FAFO Country. Adam Calhoun came out with a new album, I believe, last night. I'm not much in the country, but this stuff is really good. It'll make you feel good about the USA, and there's hope because there's good people on this planet, especially in the good old USA. God bless, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.